So, welcome back to Favorite Friday. For the first case for this week, we are going back to Kentucky. I have not been in Kentucky since the Shayna Hubert case, if my memory serves me correctly. So I guess this is like our second run through Kentucky. And I definitely have not been through this city, because apparently it's called London, Kentucky. Well, that's the actual city, like London, Kentucky. And apparently it's like a small town. And so, as you can imagine, this case is not as well known. But considering the motive and some steps could have been taken to prevent by the secretary, really could have been taken to prevent the tragedy that happened. And once I get into the story, you'll understand. So with that being said, I'm going to quit my rambling and let's go and get started. So we're going to start off with Donald. So Donald Scotty Baker, we're going to refer to him as Scotty because Scotty is like his nickname, right? And so his father's name is also Donald, sort of to avoid confusion. Scotty's the son, Donald's the dad, okay? So, Donald Scotty Baker was born on February 17th, 1982. So, his birthday just passed a couple days ago. And he was born to parents Ruth and Donald Baker. Ruth and Donald would eventually split. Didn't say how old Scotty was when they split, but they wound up splitting. Ruth had primary custody because his dad was a truck driver, so obviously he's doing a lot of driving around. So, it's not the ideal situation for a child. However, when the dad was in town, he would obviously bond with his dad because that's the only time he really gets to see his dad. And Donald would get to sleep on the couch because even though they're divorced, they're still civil with each other. Ruth and Donald are, at least for the sake of Scotty. And so Donald will wind up meeting and marrying a woman by the name of Stephanie Spitzer, who apparently she was like 22 and he was like 35, and they get married on Valentine's Day, 1992. Apparently, even though Scotty is literally his son, she doesn't like the fact that there's pictures of Scotty hanging up on the walls of the house, and apparently she took them down. Whenever Scotty would visit, she would leave, and I assume leave the trailer that they were staying at. And apparently she would complain that Scotty visited too much, even though he really was only visiting whenever Donald was even in town, because again, he's a truck driver, so he's constantly out. So then, of course, Stephanie unfortunately eventually gets pregnant by Donald. She's excited, because she's thinking, well, there's a new child. Scotty ain't going to be spending much time here anymore because his priorities are going to be on this new child, not the child that he had with Ruth. Of course, obviously, that's not it. Donald over here is trying to be the best daddy he can be, and rightfully so. And so, Stephanie, this pisses Stephanie off. So, we're in November 1992, sometime around the middle of that month, doesn't give an exact date. Apparently, Scotty and his sister, doesn't specify whether she's older or younger, but apparently he has a sister, and they are walking home from what it looks like school, and Stephanie is following them in the car from school, which is kind of weird, but yeah, I just thought I should mention that. I would like to assume the sister later came out and said that's what happened. So then on the fateful day of November 25th, 1992, apparently is the day before Thanksgiving, school is in session, but obviously it's not going to be in session the day after, because again, Thanksgiving. Donald, the father, is supposed to be in town for Thanksgiving, and Scotty apparently is telling his friends at school he's really excited. And then Stephanie's little evil ass, she gets her best friend, Suzanne Renee Baker, no relation, even though they have the same last name, okay? But that's her best friend. And she gets her to put on a black wig and some glasses. She goes in, tells the secretary, whose name is Charlotte Smith, that she's here to pick up Scotty. Scotty, of course, has a list of approved people supposed to come get him, like Donald. I assume I wouldn't know if Stephanie's on that list. His mother, Ruth, because, she had custody of Donald. And so, didn't check the list. And only his teacher had this list. And the secretary apparently wasn't aware that such list even existed. And so, obviously, it also didn't check for ID, which is another thing that's frustrating. But obviously, you have to sign out when you have a whole ass child. So, she put Patricia Smith, which is the name of one of Donald's cousins. So that shows premeditation right there. Because, we put in fake names and shit. And the disguise. So the secretary goes and gets Scotty and leaves Suzanne, who's secretly Patricia Smith, leaves Suzanne there. And then Scotty is said to not have recognized the woman, but went with her willingly. Which I don't think he ever met Suzanne, so understandably he didn't know who the hell this woman was. And so apparently he gets in the car. He's a kid. He's innocent. He is telling her how excited he is to see his dad and how excited he is to go for Thanksgiving. And then Stephanie's little ass is in the back. She's hidden. They're driving away from the school. And so eventually, Stephanie would get out from the back and start strangling Donald with a rope. So then Donald, of course, he's fighting back, because that's what you do when somebody's trying to strangle you. You instantly try to fight back to survive. And so apparently he's kicking so hard that he breaks the glove compartment. And this is what, I think a 10-year-old? So he's kicking pretty hard from what I can imagine. So then Stephanie's able to drag his ass to the back and finish the job. So eventually kills him in the back seat of the car while Suzanne is still driving. Suzanne would say she didn't even know that the plan was to kill him. She thought it was just to, like, fuck him up. That's what she would later say. So then they dump his body over by an abandoned strip mine pit. So then they go back to the house that Stephanie and Donald living at the time. They go get gasoline that she has there. Yeah, you already know this is going. She leaves a voicemail to Donald saying, hey, I walked our dog, because apparently they have a dog. They share a dog together at least. They shared one at the time. And then, I miss you. Because that's what you say when you like, because that's her partner. So obviously she's going to say, like, oh, I miss you. And so then she hangs up. She gets the gasoline, get back in the car, I assume with Suzanne. They drive back to the mine pit, set Scotty's body on fire, and then they just leave the scene. So Ruth, wanted to see her child before he goes off with his dad. She basically goes to the school, tries to like, hey, can I pick up my son early? And they're like, he already left. And apparently she wasn't freaking out because it's like the end of the day. And so she's thinking, oh, he got on the bus. And apparently, if he takes the bus home, he's supposed to go to his grandmother's house. So she goes to grandma's house, because he should have been there by now, if he had took the bus. Go to grandma's house. Grandma's like, I ain't seen him. So then Ruth, understandably, she's concerned by this point. She goes back to the school, and then she just happens to look down and sees a little sign-out sheet, and says Scotty was checked out by Patricia Smith. Remember, Donald has a cousin by Patricia Smith. She doesn't know Suzanne. She's over wondering, like, why the hell would my ex-husband's cousin come get him, and she's not on a list of approved people. So then the principal calls the secretary. He's like, hey, did somebody named Patricia Smith come get Scotty? And Charlotte asked, she confirmed it. Ruth, understandably, she's pissed and demands the police gets called. The police gets called. They are searching, apparently, within every Patricia Smith within a 100-mile radius. And they either did not match the description at all, which remember is black hair and glasses, or they had an alibi. And for the ones that did match the description, they had an alibi for where they were at around the time that Scotty would have been checked out. So like, oh, I was at work, I was doing this, whatever they were doing. So then Ruth, her two daughters, and Stephanie, yes, Stephanie, the same Stephanie that killed Scotty, they all meet at Donald's mother's house. Donald comes in not knowing that Scotty is missing. He finds out from Stephanie, apparently, that Scotty is missing. So understandably, he's concerned for the welfare of his only son that we know of. And he goes out looking for Scotty pretty much up until dawn, not knowing that he is sadly already deceased. But good on him for like immediately going to go look. And then Stephanie's ass was like, yeah, we're done for the night. Like, you need to turn in, because she already knows it's too late. Ruth and Donald, they're separated, but this is still like their child, so they're working together to find this child, because that's still their baby. Even though we separated, we're gonna put our differences aside right now to look for our damn child. And it got to the point to where they both were convinced that Stephanie had something to do with it, which she did, so good on them. Both of them, Ruth and Donald, they took a polygraph test. They both passed with flying colors. Stephanie apparently couldn't take a polygraph test because in Kentucky at the time, if you're pregnant, you can't take a polygraph test because they believe that the results will get fucked up. Because, like, your hormones and shit. That's what I would like to believe to be the reason why you couldn't take a polygraph test in Kentucky. So she gets by just because she's pregnant. And apparently she was acting so suspicious, they thought, you might not even be pregnant. So they take her ass to the hospital to confirm that she is in fact pregnant. Then, of course, obviously you gotta check people closest to you. So Ruth and Donald, they're clear of a suspect. We're looking at Stephanie now. She gives a fake alibi. I was with Suzanne at the house doing laundry, and I'd actually called another friend about getting together for Thanksgiving to like hang out. And then she also says that apparently I couldn't leave because I accidentally locked myself out of a car, which apparently that did happen still somewhat often back in the day. And because this is the 90s that we're talking about here. And so she apparently had called a locksmith. That didn't work. So then she calls her mom to come pick her up. So then, of course, they asked for a handwriting sample since the woman who was Suzanne, but they don't know she's Suzanne, left a handwriting sample. They asked for Stephanie, and obviously it didn't match. So not even a full 48 hours after Scotty has been murdered, but of course they don't know he's been murdered because apparently they ain't found his body yet. The FBI is already involved, so they're not playing. Like, this is serious, right? And rightfully so, because this is the death of a child we're talking about here. So then Ruth tells him openly, I think Stephanie ass did it. Donald, he's still at home, because I guess it's the holiday season. He looks around the house, he finds Stephanie's diary, and apparently there's a diary entry about how much she missed life before they got married, and she was actually considering divorce. And so Stephanie apparently had found out that Donald went through her diary, and then she had said, oh, well, I'm glad my alibi checked out, otherwise I would be in jail. So then Donald asked her straight up, did you have anything to do with Scotty? Because again, his suspicion that his own wife is involved in the murder of his son is like that strong, and rightfully so, okay? So then the FBI does a polygraph test on Stephanie, because the FBI is like, we don't believe that bullshit about you being pregnant, it's gonna fuck up the results. Okay, like we ain't Kentucky. We our own thing. So they take a polygraph test on her. Her ass fails. But she keeps to her story. And then apparently it seemed like that she was trying, like she was giving the answers to make it seem like she was innocent, but her demeanor, like the way her face was showing, she couldn't really give a shit. So that obviously makes her look bad. So I don't know how, but they get Suzanne's name in it, maybe because like she claimed that was her alibi, or like that's Stephanie's best friend, so maybe Suzanne would know something. So they go to Suzanne's house. Suzanne's not there. She's with her husband on the way to Florida. Keep in mind, this story takes place in Kentucky. And because her husband apparently is also driving a truck. And so they contact the husband's job. It's like, hey, can you get in contact with him? This is the 90s, so like before modern day cell phones. So they're like, yeah, we can't contact him until his ass gets to Florida. So they contact the Florida branch that he's supposed to arrive in. It's like, hey, we might have a possible abducted ass child in that trailer. So they take their asses all the way to Florida, wait for this truck to arrive, search the truck up and down, because, you know, they're thinking this is possible abduction, Scotty's still alive, that type of thing. And, of course, Scotty's not in there. And, of course, Suzanne gets questioned, and Suzanne pretty much is like, fuck it, and confesses to everything in an 8-page statement. And apparently this is after she was made to do a polygraph and a handwriting sample. Because remember, she was the one who signed Scotty out, so obviously it would come back, that's her handwriting. Because handwriting analysis does exist at this point, so yeah, she's like, might as well confess, bitch. And of course, like I said earlier, she tells the FBI that she didn't know that Stephanie was going to kill Scotty, which we don't know exactly what length of truth that was, or I guess is. And that she only went along with the murder because you were the one that went up to the school. So obviously they're going to suspect you, because obviously I couldn't go up there because I'm the stepmom. And my name is, yeah, anyway. She didn't need shit time after her. Why should she buy her best friend at this? So then she proceeds to draw a map of where Scotty's remains should be found. And they did sadly, well, I wouldn't say, like, they did find his remains, but they were hoping that this child was alive. Because obviously if you, like, get on the case this quick, you would hope the child is found alive. Like, you're hoping for like the best case scenario. So to find the child alive, that's obviously worst case scenario. They're charged, Stephanie and Suzanne are both charged with murder, obviously. And then Donald, rightfully so, files for divorce. So then, like I said, Stephanie's pregnant. She gives birth in jail. Apparently, Donald signs away all parental rights of this child because he wants nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with this child that Stephanie just gave birth to because of his mother, Stephanie. And right now, apparently, even though this is 1993, meaning like 30 years ago, so the child will be grown, the child went into custody of Stephanie's parents, Ron. The child went into the care of Roger and Bonnie, which apparently is Stephanie's parents. And so then apparently it's also said that he burned her photos, which I like to assume if there are wedding photos of them, he also burned those too. Because again, he wants nothing to do with her, and rightfully so. So then in June of 1994, Ruth and Donald, they get together and they sue the school for $12 million because you didn't check ID. She wasn't on the list of approved people to even check my child out, and now my child's dead because your little secretary Charlotte's negligence. So then the superintendent comes back and says, well, Charlotte pretty much did nothing wrong. So from what it looks like, they didn't get any money out of this lawsuit. Otherwise, it would have said, oh, they got this much back. So then Suzanne, I would like to believe she was offered a plea deal, but didn't say. So Suzanne, of course, she goes to trial first. And of course, you'd imagine she testifies against Stephanie, throws Stephanie on the bus, and rightfully so, because Stephanie technically is a mastermind behind this murder. So then she gets charged, Suzanne gets charged with reckless homicide, kidnapping, and abuse of a corpse, and gets 25 years. And in October, we're still in 1994. In October of 1994, Stephanie goes to trial, and she gets sentenced to life without parole. Sorry, she was given life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Okay? And then apparently in like March of 1996, the Kentucky like State of Appeals Board decided that somebody wasn't liable for the death, which I would like to assume is a school, because obviously there's evidence that like Stephanie and Suzanne's asses did it, even though they did try to dispose of his body by burning it. So I like to assume they said the school wasn't lying. And in 2008, Suzanne is released and she is out on parole. She's out living her life. So in 2010, apparently Stephanie and a whole bunch of other female prisoners at the jail that they were at, they get transferred to a new prison after it was revealed that a good chunk of the prisoners were sleeping with the guards. And it didn't say whether Stephanie was one of these. Stephanie was one of the inmates that were sleeping with the guards. She was at the prison, so I just thought I should mention that. And then in 2017, because like I said, Stephanie had life without parole after 25 years, and Suzanne's already been released, so Stephanie's like, if Suzanne's been released, I need to be released too. So that she applies for parole. Thank God it's denied. In 2021, apparently the Kentucky Parole Board said that if you are in jail for murder and your ass has been sentenced to life, you don't need an additional parole hearing. Once you had that one parole hearing, you are done for. And so out of like all the people in jail in Kentucky for murder, or at least at the time that happened, Stephanie was like one of 40. So unless she gets pardoned for some shit or whatever reason, they just feel like letting her out, just let her out. Her ass is in there till she dies, and rightfully so. So yeah, like I said, that's the death of Scotty Baker. Like I said, not a very well known case. I think I saw maybe like 3 people on YouTube talk about this case, but it still should be talked about because considering the motive and also the fact that Charlotte's ass, the little old secretary, you know, could have prevented this, but the school said that she followed directions. So anyway, definitely your thoughts down below. They say that this is the reason why in Kentucky it is mandatory if you're picking up a child, especially from like an elementary school or some shit, that you have to have an ID and you have to be on the list of approved people. So Scotty's death, that was the impact that Scotty's death had on Kentucky, which good for them, because that needs to be a thing anyway, so that way more cases like this doesn't happen. And so of course, let me know what you think down below. If you knew anybody involved in this case, again, let me know what you think down below. I'm here for you guys 3 times every Friday, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, then will you get bored of killing me?
So if I play dead, will you regret everything that you did, that you said? I don't think you understand what you're doing, and my heart's black and blue from the bruising. I feel like when I'm with you I'm losing. I feel like you think that this amusing, sitting there gaslighting and confusing. Was it me? Is it me? Am I deluded? I'm the one who's always sorry, the conclusion, even though I offer all of the solutions. I wish you loved me like I love you, it's stupid. When I'm alone with you I never feel lucid. I wish I wasn't struck by Cupid. I wish when I first saw you I knew this. When I'm with you I feel so useless, I feel diluted, my heart's been wounded. Silhouettes of you are like a taunt, never really know just what you want. With you I don't ever feel calm, I can feel the sweat inside my palm. Play with me like cats and a string, you don't understand the pain it brings. You don't ever wanna give me wings, you don't ever wanna set me free.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, baby you'll get sick of being the monster out of my head, under my bed, thinking something out of my you get bored.